Good evening. Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's a little bit after 6 now. I'd like to welcome you to the City of Southfield's Town Hall on the Roads. My name is Councilwoman Tanya Morris, and I'm going to be serving as the moderator for this evening. We're here tonight because we're all concerned about the condition of our roads in the City of Southfield. I know that's why I'm here. As a candidate running for office, the main issue that kept coming up with the residents was the roads. You know, why are my roads like this? When are our roads going to get fixed? So I too wondered, well, what is going on with the roads? You know, how much money it's been spent on the bond that we took out in 2014? How are we choosing which streets get fixed first? Do we evaluate our contractors' performance? So I started meeting with our city engineer, Lee Schultz, and we brought in our city administrator, finance, and public works, and we put together a presentation for you this evening that is very informative and educational, and we hope that you learn something and enjoy it. Before we get into introductions, I'd just like to ask that if you have your cameras on, he's taking a picture. If you have your phones on, please put them on mute or vibrate. Also, we have some cards out there for questions or comments. These blue note cards, if you have any questions or comments, myself and Councilman Mandelbaum will be walking around to get these from you because we do have a Q&A section. We also have handouts for you. On the front and back is the road jurisdiction map, which shows the county roads versus the city roads, as well as on the other side, upcoming roads projects map. And we'll be going more over these in the presentation as well. In addition, if you have any reconciliation issues, if you had some road construction work done on your street, but maybe your landscaping hasn't been reinstalled or your curb, might not be completed yet, we have a list out there for the engineering department for you to just sign and put your information, and we'll be sure to get in contact with you. Now, moving on to our agenda. We have an overview of the issues that's going to be done by our mayor, Ken Siver. Lee Schultz is our city engineer. She's going to lead off our presentation with talking about our pavement management system and how we assess our road conditions. Then we're going to have our city administrator, Fred Zorn, give us an update on the road funding. We're going to come back with Lee and Larry, our public works manager, talk about how our streets are selected and more information about pavement management. And then Lee will wrap up with our future roads projects information. After that, I'll do Q&A, and we're going to make sure that we get through all of the questions that we receive this evening if we can. Mayor Ken Siver.
Thank you, Tanya. I do want to make a couple of other introductions. Councilman Dan Brightwell is up front. Councilman Mandelbaum, Ari Mandelbaum. Councilman Donald Fracassi. I don't think I've missed any. Oh, Treasurer Irv Lowenberg, sorry. And I saw John McRena, our Deputy City Administrator, in the back. Okay. So I don't want to take too much time. I'm actually doing double duty. I have a neighborhood association that I'm presenting at Parks and Rec in half an hour. But I wanted to start out by saying last summer I got an invitation to a wedding. It was my sister, 72 years old, first wedding, so of course I had to go. Unfortunately, or I don't know how you want to say it, but it was a challenge to get there because she was getting married in the northwestern part of Georgia, which is very rural. And I looked at airports to fly into, and I finally, it was ridiculous, the places you had to go to get there. And so I said, I haven't taken a road trip in a long time. So I got in my car and I started driving. And I knew when I left Michigan, I was in a better place. And actually, I took a as long as I was in the car driving to rural Georgia, I thought, well, I'm just going to go all over. And I actually went through 9 states. And no surprise, the roads in Michigan were absolutely the worst. I also would tell you that I moved here in the mid-'60s. And so I've been here 50 years. And when I moved here, I got hired in a brand new school. I was living in a brand new apartment. And all the roads were relatively new. We had a lot of road construction that I can remember trying to get through as they were actually widening roads in the 60s because of the housing boom here and the office market. And so we built a lot of roads, for years, we've had a mill, one mill. Of all the city mills you pay, one mill goes to roads. And that's supposed to be dedicated just for local streets. And that served us fairly well, as long as we were getting money from the state of Michigan on something called Act 51. And we're doing a lot of spot repair where seams were bad to kind of stretch the life of roads. And then comes the 2 things happen. First of all, we have the economic crash. At the same time, so the state is not sharing as much money, and I'm not trying to be political. I'm just telling you like it is. We get less money from the state. We're down over 30% in state shared revenue. Then we had fuel efficiencies. Cars were going further per mile, getting more mileage. They were lighter, and so 19 cents from every gallon of gas we buy supposed to go to roads through the sales tax on roads. And we also have some money that comes in from when you renew your registration for your car. Our local road millage, when the crash came, we lost roughly 40% of our taxable value. And so that impacted everything we do. The library has a millage and had to cut back on hours because the millage did not bring in as much money to support this building. Parks and Rec had to do belt tightening because it has a separate millage. And our road millage, the money from that really shrunk substantially. And at the same time, we have now in Lansing this debate we've had this for years now, this debate about funding roads. And they've come up with this formula that is sort of a rob Peter to pay Paul thing. And we're supposed to start seeing money in a year or 2. I'm honestly very skeptical about this. And in the meantime, we're hearing from all of you. We drive the same streets you do. We all live here. And we know that the roads are deteriorating. And we're getting blamed for some of the roads, by the way. I always have to underscore this. There's some of these roads that are not ours. 8, 10, 12, Greenfield, Southfield, Lasher are not our roads. They're county roads, and yet the county comes to us all the time. Anytime they do anything, for instance, they're going to do a piece up here, long needed, between Civic Center and the Lodge Freeway. That's a mess. And it's their road. We've asked them to fix it. And so their hand is out. Every time the county says, okay, Southfield, we'll do a road, their hand is out. So I believe we're paying 300. Yeah, 50%. And that's money that could go onto neighborhood streets. But we know that that road is heavily traveled. It's tough on cars. I get the complaints about people who've had rims and tires and so on. So there we are. And when the cement fails, that's another thing. For instance, the classic case of Greenfield Road between 8 and 9 Mile. If you remember how bad that was a couple of years ago, it was like going through a crater. And Mayor Lawrence at the time had threatened the county to close the road. And the county said, oh, you can't do that. But that finally got their attention. But we put in over $600,000. And the thing was, we'd already paid for that. We'd already put in money for it. But it was their cement that failed. It didn't fail on the Oak Park side. The lanes that go north on the Oak Park side did not fail. For some time, and you can see this on 10 Mile. If you drive 10 Mile from Greenfield to Evergreen, you can see between Southfield and Greenfield, it's the north side that's a mess. And then between Southfield and Evergreen, it's the south side that's a mess. And so we're really stuck. Those are not our roads, and we are contributing to get the work done. I just thought you might be interested, though. This is Michigan's roads are probably among the worst in the country, and on spending, in Michigan rated in 1964. Michigan rated 43 as far as one would be, we have the great roads, 43 out of 50 states. 74, Michigan ranked 44. 84, we ranked 42. 88, we ranked 44. 92, we ranked 49th. 2010, we are 50 out of 50 states. And again, we have a legislature that has refused to raise the gas tax, we're very skeptical about this plan that's coming up. And knowing all of this, we went to the voters in 2014, and overwhelmingly, 72% of the Southfield residents said yes to a $99 million bond issue for roads. That sounds like a lot of money. When you're talking road construction, it is not. And Lee and I think Larry in their presentation will tell you how much it costs per lane to either do a road in concrete or in asphalt. But we also have stretched our dollars through refinancing our 2005 road bond. We capitalized on a better interest rate so we could stretch road dollars. And then we've been very, very aggressive about grants. Evergreen Road out here, whether you like roundabouts or not, if you wanted the federal money, you had to have roundabouts. And the federal government is pushing roundabouts because roundabouts save gas because you're not stopped, in this case, 2 traffic lights. And also, accidents happen in intersections, but they're less likely to be fatal in a roundabout because they're more likely to be sideswiping rather than T-boning at a traditional intersection. So we have added a 3rd roundabout on Bell Road. We have a 4th one coming over where 11 Mile and Franklin meet. And we're going to be doing more roundabouts more than likely, especially if it's tied to grant money. And there were a number of people came to me and said, "Oh, I don't this whole idea of roundabouts out here," and they got used to it. And some people actually came back to me, as much as I complained about the fright I had about navigating a roundabout, they said, I can actually get from 10 to 11 faster. Except for now with that construction up there, because you don't stop for 2 lights. So, we really hear you. I get pothole complaints all the time. Larry and his crew, we've added staff to the Public Works Department to try and keep up with it. It's a tall order. It's tough at this time of year because Larry is also managing everything from street lights and the water department to the grass mowing on public right-of-ways. So we're all very busy, but this is an important topic, and we thought that after we're 3 years in now. The first year we spent about $37,000, matched with other funds, or rather 37 million, matched with other funds. That was 2015. 2016 we spent about 40,000. This year we're spending about 20. I keep saying thousand. It's million. 37, 40. This year about 25 million. We slowed it down a little bit this year because a number of projects didn't get done last year. And so we're, kind of readjusting. But there is more work to come, and we're going to continue to seek matching funds, whether it's from the county, the state, or the federal government. So I'd like to tell you that everything's going to be fixed by tomorrow. We really have more or less a 10-year plan, but your understanding and patience is appreciated. I'd like to also acknowledge that he just came in, our council president, Myron Frazier, is here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mayor Siver. Moving right along in our presentation, I'm going to bring up Lee Schultz, the city engineer.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's going to get dark here so we can see the presentation better. But this is actually a great opportunity. Pavement management is a big part of the presentation tonight, and this is something that the City Council has been hearing a lot about in the last several years, so they're getting quite familiar with it, and it's a nice opportunity to spread the word, and so people have a better understanding of how we spend our road dollars. So during this presentation, I'm going to be reviewing this pavement asset management, road funding overview. Like Tanya said, we'll be with Fred Zorn, our administrator. We're going to talk about our capital improvement planning and scheduling, like how we select roads. We'll review where we've come in the last 3 years and talk about what results we're seeing as far as our road conditions. And then we'll be talking about the future years programs in the next few years, and that's really what that flyer is about too, that you grabbed out front. And then we'll answer some questions people have. And again, those question and comment cards, so depending on how quickly we get through this, we'll answer whatever we can tonight. We may sift through them a little bit, see which ones seem like they would be most appropriate for the whole group. Other ones that might be more maybe project complaint specific, we'll probably get back with you in just the next few days. So over the past decade, the state of Michigan has been requiring all cities to follow asset management principles for our assets, including roads, bridges, sewers, water mains, at least on the public works side. I'm sure there's asset management for every other thing that this city owns and maintains. And really the purpose of this is to help the cities understand the true condition of these assets and what the costs are to maintain them. Part of what Mayor Siver was talking about with all of those roads being built and in relatively good shape, it's the same time that those roads were being built, the water mains were being built, the sanitary sewers were being built, all at the same time. And we're in a spot now where our infrastructure is aging pretty much all right at the same time. So it's been a big challenge, but we're working our way through it. We have limited funds, and we're going to do the very best we can to make sure we're responsible with those dollars. So asset management of roads includes some basic elements. We need to know the condition of all of the city maintained and owned roads. We do that on a regular basis. We have to develop a plan to maintain these assets at an acceptable condition through the use of cost-effective strategies. And then we have to review our conditions and review our strategies. So when we're evaluating these road conditions every 2 years, every 2 years, we want to make sure that we're seeing some improvement in the overall road network. Yeah, and I just said that, every 2 years we drive them. So even if you're on a small local street that you think we may not know about, we do drive every single city-owned road every 2 years to do a pavement evaluation. A big part of pavement management is just maintaining the asset that you have and trying to extend the life when it comes to these roads. So we oftentimes use a roof analogy. When you've got a new roof, when that roof really starts to age, maybe the shingles start to curl a little bit, you put another layer on. It's a lot less expensive than doing the whole tear off, and you can get away with doing that 2 or 3 times and before you get to the point of having to do a complete tear off. So in the road world, those re-roofing, when you're just putting another layer on top, that's our pavement rehabilitation projects that you see. A lot of the mill and overlay type projects, or maybe spot concrete repairs in a concrete neighborhood. And then we're putting off as long as we can that total reconstruction, because that's where the real big dollars come in. This road jurisdiction map, this is what you have in that handout here. And this slide also reviews how many miles of the different jurisdictions roads within the city. And then the approximate value of our city-owned roads is about $625 million of our city locals and our city majors. So when we're out doing these road ratings, there's a standard that the state of Michigan is now requiring, and this is how we report back to the state. It's called PACER ratings, and it's basically a 1 to 10 scale, with 10 being a brand new constructed road, and 1 to 3 is poor, 1 is really total failure. So this just shows a few pictures so you get an idea on an asphalt pavement how these roads go from good to fair. A lot of fair roads, that's when they catch our eye. A lot of times roads that are in fair condition still drive well, and as a motorist it may seem fine. If you put on a pair of rollerblades, you're probably going to notice that road's getting a little rough. But we're trying to see what we can do to catch them when they're in fair condition before they get all the way into that poor condition and then requiring a total reconstruction. So we've been doing these ratings every 2 years since 2008. This is just some of our statistics for how many miles of roads we have in different pavement conditions and where we are right now as far as what we call poor, fair, and good, and the PACER ratings there. So right now we're at 86 miles of poor condition roads, 91 miles of fair, and 67 miles of good to very good condition roads. And here's a history from these years that we've been doing these PACER ratings. And take a little time to really absorb what happens, because this is the same. We haven't really added any new roads to our network, and you can see what's happening. What's like most concerning is when you start seeing that red, those are our poor roads, and it continues to increase. And a lot of times with our road programming, when we have federal funds that are available on these major roads, those are projects that need to move forward in specific years, because that's the year that we were successful getting that funding, and it's only good for that 1 year. And sometimes it pushes some of the local projects back. You can see from 14 to 16, 14, that was done right before the road bond passed, and it's really in 15 and 16 that we've been spending the road bond dollars. But in 14, the city really did start investing additional money into the roads, mostly driven by water main needs, actually. So that red's going up, and that fair is okay. Some of our fares, though, are slipping back into that red, and part of our goal here is to try and capture them and keep them in the yellow before they're getting to the red. When the green goes up, that's a direct move from red to green. So that's a reconstructed road, most likely, or a recent rehabilitation. So right now we're at an overall PACER score of 4.63. In 2014, we were overall at about a 4.60. So we've come up about a half a point in just 2 or 3 years. And this is just a slide because this is natural. We drive different cities, and I get calls like this sometimes about the roads in one city versus another. This is just to kind of show how we compare with other cities that are comparable size to City of Southfield. And really, everything here is between a 4 and a 5. These are all in what's considered the fair condition. What Southfield's hoping to do is, by the end of this road bond, this $99 million bond, is to take this average that's now at 4.63 and hopefully get us up to about a 6 PACER rating or better. That would put us in the low end of good for the average network condition. So the basic theory of pavement management is to spend the money at the right time so that you're extending the life of that road. So of course, when a road's brand new, there's not really much to do. We just leave it there, no work happens. When it starts to get a few years old is when you'll see us come in with some crack sealing, and that's just to seal up those cracks. Once they start, that's fine, the road still drives nice, just trying to keep the water from getting into that pavement section. And then as the road continues to age and deteriorate, falling further down into the fair, that's when ideally we're coming in and taking the opportunity to do the least expensive rehabilitation that we can, usually a mill and overlay for the asphalt roads, and on concrete roads that would be like spot concrete projects. Sometimes it may be an asphalt overlay over an existing concrete road. There's different, depending on how bad the road is, sometimes they recycle the entire asphalt pavement cross section, they pulverize it. It almost just looks like dirt, but that really just acts as a sturdy base and then new layers of asphalt on top. Of course, once we get down into 3, 2, 1, now we're starting to look at total reconstruction. And Fred was going to come up and talk about road funding.
Roads, long-term hot button issue. Many of you will recall it was the election issue in 1988 that Governor Blanchard at the time said we would deal with after he was elected. It had been passed on for a number of years. Like everyone in this room, we talk about major and local roads. Those local roads, the roads that your home is on, Edgewood, Rougemont, Hilton, whatever street you live on, a builder will tell you when they're building a new home, anywhere from $5 to, and I recently heard $700 a linear foot. So if you've got a 100-foot lot, you've got 100 times 700 or $70,000 worth of infrastructure. If the cost as a builder is $500, so with your land and just your infrastructure, if you got a 100-foot lot at $500, you've got $50,000 worth of infrastructure. Standard amortization schedule on any asset of that type would be 39.5 years. So take the age of the community and you have a lot of that infrastructure is fully amortized. So with the $99 million bond and other revenue streams, we begin rebuilding the asset and starting our amortization schedule over again. I want to point out the mayor used the term Act 51, passed in 1949, part of the country's defense initiative. The World War II's over, Korean conflict is ended. Eisenhower's the president. We're trying to figure out how we mobilize the country from point to point. Auto industry, you have the Great Depression, few homes are being built. Auto industries are now, is growing, becoming a maturing industry. How do we build roads across the country? So you go back, Act 51 originally passed in 1949. This is, we're currently, for every, where we've got 5, that's in millions of dollars. So and right now I'm not speaking of the bond, I'm just talking about what we receive annually from the state. This is what pays for our public works staff, our crew, salt, cutting the grass along the road right-of-ways, and such. So Act 51 is broken into 2 different groups, major and local streets, and we start from 2000 to 2016. You can see the number's been relatively flat. You might get these little spikes, and those are one-time allocations where the formula is pretty much, as the mayor said, the 19 cents per gallon. And then you'll see these little spikes. That's maybe where the legislature said, we're going to put a few extra dollars in roads. So it's relatively flat. Fall of 15 legislature does pass new legislation. How many of you have done your license registrations since the beginning of the year? About a 25% increase over last year. That's part of that legislation. They didn't put it in effective immediately. They said, we're going to wait till after the November election. So that means the revenue from that legislation doesn't come to the city for about another 6 months. So everyone is saying, oh, the legislature gave you this fixed. We're not going to see that money till the state fiscal year is October 1. We'll start seeing it the first quarter, July 1 through September 30th. So these are the numbers we're working with. Major, local streets, your residential streets, major. In Act 51, we get to take that pie and say, we have to use a higher percentage of it on major streets than local streets. And if you go through it, the state's position is what roads get the most volume. Major roads, the evergreens, the green, the 9 miles, the 11 miles. So we are getting roughly combined just a little over 5 million. It will go up a little bit more, so we're going to see an increase. I want to, my next slide, and I'm going to go back and forth. This is again the 16, 17. We're just under Act 51, just under $5 million is what's expected to come in. We have a local millage in Southfield, 1 mil. Every $1 billion worth of property value generates at 1 mil, $1 million. Just want to take you back, what years, going back to 08, 09, before the recession, that used to generate 4.6 million a year. Our property values came down, and because of Proposal A, they can only go up with inflation. That is now only generating 2.6 million. So with the increase that we're getting from the state, the first thing we're doing is bringing our staffing back. Our staff at probably about a 45, almost a 50% reduction in streets and highways. We need people to operate salt trucks. We need people to fill potholes, to cut the grass. We have a maintenance function. So again, street levy used to bring in 4.6 million. Currently, it's estimated to bring in about 2.6 million. And with the gas, you can see this pretty much follows our combined budget for roads. And again, this is separate than the bond, is 7.52 million. With the 7.52 million, we do match a bond. We pay debt service on this one bond. I want to just go back. We've done a little over 35 different projects, depending upon how you count them out. One of the impressive areas is federal funding. And when we put the program together, the bond campaign, we said, and one of the instructions from council is, don't count on any of that federal money coming in. And the total on it, you can see it's just under $20 million, what has come in the last few years. Quarterly, Lee, Larry, and sometimes I join them. We're in a meeting with Oakland County Road Commission folks. Countywide, there's about $16.5 million that gets divvied up. I can tell you right now, in the last few years, our peers north of us are upset with Southfield. And here's the reason why. We've been able to leverage the bond money to bring in more of these county dollars. The formula there is all based on a score and a competitiveness based on the condition of the roads. And what you see, Lee, what our engineer spoke about, since 2008, this is all about managing an asset. Whether, just like the roof on your home, you got to replace it. It's good for another 20, 25 years, 30 years. You got to begin rebuilding these streets. We didn't start, our bridge evaluation started in 2010. The decks of those bridges, the supports for the bridges, all of those have moved to an asset management. Right now in our water and our storm system, we're currently moving that to an asset management system, and the city's received a grant for $2 million to take us through that process. So these are for each year the different federal grants we've got, and then you can see where, as we've been moving in the last 3 years, this one is Evergreen Road, 2016, 17, another $3.5 million, 17. All right, we were authorized to bond up to $99 million. This first number here, we went out and we issued bonds. The combined, what we did, is $41,500,000. So we have the difference. We still have that money to borrow. We've not yet borrowed it because, one, we can only do so much work at a time. We refinanced a bond going back to 2008, and that allowed us to bring in another $4.4 million in for projects. There was a cost of issuing the bonds. So when we were all done, the last 3 years, we've had $47,290,000 to work with. Now I'm just speaking about road funding. We've also had water and sewer funding that we've been coupling with these projects. When we rip up your street and we go in to try to rebuild your water system, we're able to allocate some of the reconstruction costs of your roads to that water system. So, again, we're constantly trying to leverage those dollars, and between water and roads, the combined number is in that mid-80 figure. So 2015, we did $4.3 million in road projects. 2016, and this is what was charged to the bond, and what was also charged to the refinancing of that one bond. So the 47.2 million is what you were. So 4.3 million in 15, 20.4 million in 16, 12.3 million in 17, total of 37. It leaves us unencumbered, and these are projects that we have commitments for future of 10.4. So the second part of the bond, we will go out to the market probably spring of 2018. One of the challenges has been interest rates. When we did the first bond, were phenomenal. We were in a good interest rate market, but this is a combination of our ability to do. I'm not sure if the city could handle any more work. We've got a lot tore up, and we're moving it very quickly. So we phased that. There will probably be 2 to 3 more points where we go out and borrow against that $99 million. I'm going to go back. I touched on it. I'm going to, I just really want you to, we've been talking about asset management. Think about your home. Each of you, your home built in the 1950s, the 60s, the 70s. If it's anything after 77, and most of the city was built before 1977, that asset in front of your home is fully depreciated. And there are things, while we're talking about roads, we used to have over 200 water main breaks a year. You're down to under 10 to 15 a year. And a lot of that asset management information has been plugged in here to help us get a better handle on how we're investing these dollars and leveraging these road dollars. I'll turn it back over to Lee. And
So a big question, I think, for a lot of people is how these streets are selected. And as I had mentioned before, briefly, when we're talking about major roads that have federal dollars, it's a little different because we compete, we pick projects that we think are going to score well within Oakland County. Those federal dollars, that all gets distributed through Oakland County for the major road projects. There are about applications that total $60 million of ask every year at those meetings in Oakland County. Oakland County is setting up projects for about 14.5 million. So, I mean, that's how much of a need just in our county is out there, and that we're all fighting over these crumbs of federal dollars. But Southfield's done very well, and the road bond has helped us in recent years, been able to score some extra points because we've increased our local match a bit to make sure that we were successful in getting those projects moving forward. So in the beginning, in 2014, the bond didn't pass until the fall, so the true road bond projects didn't start until 15. But already in 2014, we were strategizing okay, we do not have enough money in roads. Let's see where we've got the most aged water infrastructure with a lot of breaks, and combine that with the road condition assessments in these neighborhoods. And let's start focusing our dollars there so that we can share the cost of that reconstruction between water funds and road funds. So we already had kind of our program and what our priority list was outlined for a few years. So when that road bond did pass in the fall, a lot of these first projects that you've seen move forward have been these projects that we had already identified as having water main needs. So these have been big projects, expensive projects when you include the road costs and the water main replacement costs. It's made a big difference to our water department over at Public Works as far as responding to these breaks. Larry will talk a little bit more about that later. So that was how the subdivisions were first prioritized, was really based on water main breaks with some weight of what the road conditions were. We've replaced 26.7 miles of water main in Southfield in the last 3 years, and with 46 miles of roads. So this is some of these roads. When we talk about the miles of roads, not everyone was a reconstruction. Some of these are our pavement rehabilitation projects that are a little less expensive that we're trying to get to. And the roads that don't have utility needs, maybe a lot of the west side of the city, the utilities are a little bit newer. All the sewers went in about 15 or so years ago. And those we rehabilitate when the time's right. And that's when we fall back to, okay, what's our condition rating on a bunch of these roads that are in fair condition? We can come in, spend a couple $1 million and get 7 or 8 miles of roads just with the new surface, grab them before they fall into that poor condition. This is going back to picking the right fix at the right time. This is really just a graphic representation of what we're doing to extend the life of the road. So when that road's brand new, it starts to age, and then we put a little bit of money into it and give it a new surface. Brings that condition rating back up, and as it starts to fall again into that fair condition, we put a little bit more money into it. Some of these roads are kind of easy with these asphalt roads that we can keep doing that as long as we have a good sub-base underneath. And some of the existing soil conditions can really have an effect on how long a road lasts. Southwest part of the city, real sandy. Our roads last a whole lot longer over there than they do in the east part of the city where we have a lot of clay soils underneath. Those clay soils just move and swell, and they're a little harder on our pavement, so there's a lot going on. So with preventative maintenance and our rehabilitation techniques, we're trying to extend the life of these roads beyond what would be a typical road life cycle. Is about, if you did nothing, it'd last about 20 years, is what they say. And ideally, we're gonna be pushing it 30, 35, 40 years if we can keep coming in and spending small amounts of money and keeping it at an acceptable level so that you're not noticing. If you're noticing the roads, it's probably because they're getting to be in bad shape, and then my phone's ringing. But, and this slide really just just shows you the two scenarios of what we're doing. So when we're looking at this asset management, if the old way of doing roads, as soon as it would start falling down to just starting to reach that poor condition, that was when roads were getting reconstructed, invest the big dollars, it gets back up, and then comes back down as it ages. What we're trying to do is on the right here and just do a little crack seal. That helps right away to extend the life of the pavement. Here's a thin overlay. We might do a pulverize that's on an asphalt road where we're grinding up all that asphalt and giving it a new top. So at the end of a 36-year life cycle, we've spent less money per square yard per year over the life of the pavement, and in the end, we actually have a better condition rating. So we include 2014 on here, that bond refinancing that Fred talked about before the road bond passed. That gave us some money in 2014 as well when we started really ramping up the capital projects. So this is just a map kind of showing you. I had someone call me one time last year and they said, you know, you've passed this road bond and I don't see any work going on. Last year we were very heavy into the subdivisions. We only had one major road project and that was on 9 Mile between Beach and Telegraph. But if you lived on the other side of town and your one neighborhood didn't happen to be under construction, he thought there was nothing going on. And I couldn't help but laugh. I'm like, we have about $35 million in construction going on right now. You're just not seeing it if it's not in your neighborhood, but we are out there. And I like to show this map just so people can see on a map that the work is spread out throughout the city. This one is just the major roads that we've done in the last few years. It includes 2017, which is this year. Some of these projects haven't actually started yet, so I wanted to point some of these out. We've got this northbound Northwestern service drive from Telegraph to Northwestern. It's like over by Case and Lockdale where the Star Theater is there. So that's going to be reconstructed this year, that piece. That'll be starting. It's probably going to be another 3 or 4 weeks before that one starts. There's this piece of Franklin Road, which currently is probably our worst road condition in the city of Southfield, especially between Swanson and 11 Mile there. This is also where the roundabout is going in at 11 Mile. That project just got started this week. I'm not sure if they actually have a shovel in the ground, but the traffic controls are in place. Everything else from this year really has started except the county's project. We do show that on our map. That's the Civic Center to Northwestern there because we participate in the cost of that project, so it shows up here. That one's also probably about a month out. Excuse me. Some of the media, we've got several news stations in town. So they pay a lot of attention. They pay a lot of attention to what's going on the major roads because those are the ones that they're driving. This is thank you. This will give me a little break from speaking for a minute. When we were preparing for this, we had found a video that some motorists have no idea. They just put a video on YouTube of our northbound Northwestern service drive between 8 and 9 Mile. In 2014, that was easily the worst road in the city of Southfield. It did get redone in 15, and our cable department put together a great video I want to share. memories fade quickly, though. As soon as that road gets fixed, everyone's like, yes! And then they're calling about the next worst road. So there's always one that seems to be taking its place. And this is just a still shot. This is the same road that we came in. These service drives are eligible for federal dollars. They are very challenging to successfully get those federal dollars because the traffic counts are low, and a big part of the scoring system for federal dollars is based on traffic counts. So this project we were fortunate to get funding for. We've strategized some in other ways to get federal dollars on the service drives by making the projects much longer, like a 2-mile long service drive project. You get the overall cost per square yard down because of the size of the work. We get better prices, and that helps us score well and get the funding. So for the local road projects, this is everywhere we've been since 2014 as well. All of our 2017 projects in the locals are already under construction this year. This was a big push where, with council support, I felt it was very important that we really start not just focusing on where we have to reconstruct the roads and do the water main replacement, but come in, spend a lot less dollars, but hit a lot of roads on the west side. That a lot of those roads were paved about 15 years ago when the sewers went in. Mostly asphalt, mostly no curb and gutter. They're relatively inexpensive roads to rehab, but we very quickly take them from a pavement rating of 4 and 5 up to an 8 and 9 by doing these pavement rehabilitation projects. So that's most of the local projects that are going on the west side of the city are all those simple type of pavement rehabs. It's kind of quick. We're in and out of the streets in about 3 weeks for each of the streets once it starts construction. In sections 24 and 25 on the east part of the city, these are really the first 2 phases of a very large investment in these areas where we have a lot of historical sewer backup in these areas. The east part of Southfield, most of the neighborhoods east of Southfield Road are combined sewer systems, so the storm water that comes off the roads and the sanitary sewage goes into one pipe. All the rest of Southfield is separated. We don't have nearly the issues like we do in a big, large rain event. We seem to be having these more frequent, large rain events, and we're getting more frequent basement backups in these areas. So we are separating some of these neighborhoods. So these neighborhoods, they still had the water main needs. Their water is old, but besides water main replacement, we are also building new sewers to separate the sanitary flow from the stormwater flow. Offers a higher level of protection for those basement backups, and then those roads get done as well. So these first 2 years, there's a large pump station going in. The pump station alone is about $1 million, and that pump station will be acting really as a backflow preventer, because ultimately all this flow, now that we're separating the storm and sanitary, it still goes to a combined sewer and 10-mile a county sewer. And what we see happening in large storms is that county system will surcharge, goes back up into the neighborhoods and then into basements. So this, all the separated sewer now is going to be running through the pump station, and that pump station itself acts like a backflow preventer, so we're protected from that surcharging of the county system. And again, you can see the work is spread around town. I mean, that is more of, besides the straight pavement management of it, that's some of the politics of it too. It's like we want to show that we are doing work. We certainly have needs all across the city. So it's, when you've got 2 equally valuable projects, we kind of look, we haven't been really over in this area for a while. Let's prioritize this one, save the other one for next year. And these are some of the projects that we've done recently. This top picture is section 31. We speak in sections, but that's down here around 8 Mile and Inkster over here. That was one that was really driven by the water main needs there, and then they got new asphalt roads with it. This is in our section 11, which is up here north of 12 Mile between Evergreen and Southfield. That looks like a whole lot of pavement. We were in those neighborhoods on all of those streets, but that was really a spot concrete program. So those were not all brand new roads. We had, like a lot of concrete areas. You've got some sections of road that seem like they're holding up very well. We've got others that are falling apart or the joints are starting to deteriorate. So we were able to really improve the condition of almost that full square mile. And I'm going to turn it over to Larry to talk about some of the results that DPW sees from this investment.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. I wanted to talk about, first off, I heard Fred and Lee mention a couple times worst road. That's one of the things that Public Works has to deal with all the time. At one time, it was Evergreen right in front of City Hall. Then we had our Greenfield issues and Northwestern Service Drive. Those worst roads are the ones that eat up our time and our materials. In just a short period of time, we've been able to drop the amount of tonnage. Everyone hates cold patch because it doesn't last, but we had to buy a lot of cold patch. We were looking in 2010. We've dropped over 177 tons of purchase on cold patch in just 4 years. The water main breaks, where Lee had talked about where we were leveraging our water dollars on some of the areas, we've dropped our water main breaks to below 50 a year and historical highs in the 200s. What that's done has saved us. For example, in 2010, we spent almost $500,000 just in water main repairs. The last couple of years, we're right around $140,000. Those savings equal new water main pipes. Again, so we can roll that savings forward and save time and money and loss of service. The hours that our guys are out there, because we are running on a light staff because we had to for a while, but the hours that we're saving also turns into preventative maintenance. We're out flushing water main. We're out taking care of like minor issues, the crack sealing, the joint sealing, the small repairs to extend the life of the road. So it compounds on itself and helps save us more money as we go forward. All told, we've changed. Where's the forward lead? All total in just the water main, for example, we have 350 miles-ish of water main in Southfield. We've replaced about 25 miles or 7% of it. And just with that 7%, we cut the water main breaks down by about 70%. So that's moving our money in the right spot to get the biggest bang for our buck. We're looking at repair costs this year, $130,000 or less. That's going to be money that we save as opposed to spending $500,000 fixing things. Total investment in the city infrastructure right now, and that's the water and road money, $73 million since the program started. Also, we're in front of a lot of people's homes. We're doing a lot of work. I know it's an inconvenience, but we are getting the results, and we're rolling those dollars back into the roads, back into the water main to help keep us from having catastrophic Northwesterns and Evergreens. And I get to turn it back over to Lee.
So with a lot of projects comes a lot of project management and a lot of working in front of people's homes. And as the years have gone by, we've been making small improvements little by little, but some of the things, if you're in a neighborhood that has already had construction, and maybe that's why you're here, especially if something you didn't think went very well, or maybe you're a neighborhood that's going to be coming soon, some of the things that we're really trying to focus on to improve the experience. I mean, it's painful, it's hugely inconvenient when there's neighborhood construction going on, but we really feel like resident communication from the city to the residents, not just in the very beginning to say, hey, here's what's going on, but to give you some updates and let you know, okay, we're going to be doing water main work. Water main is pretty impactful because for us to do water mains, we've got to shut off water main. So, and that usually happens 3-4 times during a project. So they usually do a little test shut off first, make sure all the old valves are working properly, and then they do the real shut off when they're making the water main connections. So we're trying to stay on top of that. I really foresee that there will be some improvement in resident communication over the years just with technology. It would be nice instead of just flyers on a door or going through the regular post office mail system to be able to put out emails to people or texts or whatever that is. That's some internal communications we're having at the city to see what we can do to make the experience even better and make sure that we're spreading the word to all the people that need to hear what's going on their street. Maintaining property access is a key part. So the contractors are told right from the beginning that vehicles need to be able to get to their homes, pedestrians need to be able to get to their homes. Depending on what type of road work is going on in front of your house, sometimes that when we say pedestrian access, you might be walking a block to get to your house, especially if we're doing concrete work where we've got concrete curbs. So once the curbs are poured, you can't get in, then we pour that concrete road and you still can't get in, and then we pour your concrete driveway and you still can't get in. So this can be weeks of impact to people, particularly when there's concrete involved, because we have cure time to deal with. I mentioned the temporary water service interruptions. The one thing, and then whenever I talk about these projects, I have to bring it up. And when we have public meetings before every local project starts. And one of the things I tell people when there's water main involved, it's like, we will never ever leave you without water overnight. So if all the contractors are gone and you don't have water, call. Something is wrong. We will get someone out there at any time and get you hooked back up. Sometimes our windows don't stay exactly per schedule because we run into construction conflicts. Maybe we thought you'd only be out from 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. Phones start ringing at 4:15. I'm like, do you see them working? And people are like, yeah, they're still out there. I'm like, okay, it'll be on soon. Something must have come up, but they're not going to leave until everyone gets their water turned back on. We do have to coordinate. We coordinate with the post office to make sure people's mail is still being collected. Sometimes this may mean that your mailbox is actually relocated to another location where we do like a batch of mailboxes if the post office can't get up and down the street at all. Most of the time, they can get down the street, and we sometimes just have to relocate your mailbox temporarily to make sure it's accessible to that mail carrier. Same thing with trash. That's another coordination. We work closely with our public works because they've got, all the contacts with our waste company to make sure that the trash is getting to the waste company so we don't miss pickups. And then of course with schools during the school year, all of our projects pretty much start when school's still in session and still going on when school starts back up in the fall. So we do work closely with the schools for bus pickup and try and let them know ahead of time where we're gonna be. They oftentimes reroute. They handle all the communication to the parents, and we just talk to the schools ourselves. Restoration is always a big topic. At the end of a project, most of the local street projects get seed and mulch or a hydro seed that goes down. Restoration is the one thing that keeps these projects open. After the major construction is done, these contracts typically stay open for another 1.5 to 2 years because we are making sure that the grass growth is coming back before the contractor gets fully paid and before they're gone. So, and sometimes depending on what time of year it is, like right now, it's been hot, we're into June. Sometimes the contractors don't even want to put their grass restoration down right now because the chance of survival is so much less and they don't want to have to do it twice because we're only paying them once. So sometimes they actually will wait until end of August, early September, whenever we get that break and the temperatures there, and do our plantings there. When we talk about growing seasons, we don't really think of spring to fall. We think of spring growing season for grass and then a fall growing season for grass. So if they miss one of those, they're coming back the next year. So oftentimes it's 3 to 4 growing seasons that the contractors are coming back, still working on the restoration. At the end of every project, our consulting engineers that manage the field work complete performance evaluations for the contractors. So we want to make sure that everything went smoothly, or maybe identify where we feel there could be improvement. I don't think there's any, hopefully no contractors in the audience. There is not a perfect one exists, believe me. So they've all got their strengths and weaknesses. Ultimately, Southfield does go through a process of pre-qualification. So we do have contractors here that have been responsible, have good reputations. Locally, we check references for them to get on the list, so that when we are bidding these projects for our local programs, it's not really going out to the general public and every contractor out there. It's going to the contractors that are on our pre-qualified list, and those contractors get on that list when they apply to us. So it's more performance-based as far as the qualified contractors, and then of course it's low bid from those contractors' pool. On the major roads, it's a little different. All these federal funded projects, even though the city and our engineering consultants are running the day-to-day oversight of the contractors out there, those technically are MDOT projects, and we have a lot less control of what goes on with that selection. So those contractors technically are under contract with MDOT, with the state of Michigan, and then we, Southfield, enter into a contract with MDOT just for the cost sharing. Warranties. Warranties, we do have like a maintenance and guarantee type warranty on all of our locally funded projects, and they last for 2 years after project completion. That protects the city against workmanship defaults. Honestly, it's not very frequently that we have to go to that warranty. Some of the restoration issues that keep the projects open, when the project's still open, the contractor is addressing anything that shows up. So cracks in a slab of pavement that might show up. Those are the type of things that we would have a contractor address. When the work is substantially complete, we walk the whole job with the contractor, create punch lists. So sometimes you think the work's all done, and then maybe a month later you'll see the contractor back cutting out sections because they had an issue, or there was an issue with the paver, made a skip, and we have a defect in the pavement. So a lot of, I would say 95% of the issues that we have when the projects are going on. Yeah.
We think that it may be, oh, that's good. I'm trying to figure out what was making that noise, but it may be this. So if I take this away.
I think we're done with the videos. That can probably
Yeah.
go off.
Okay, that may do it.
So, yeah, I'd say 95% of the issues are addressed while the project's still open, and we handle it that way. The federally funded projects right now do not have warranties. Warranties, honestly, are the way that we build these roads now, and with a stringent oversight, I find the warranties to be a bit overrated. It seems a little bit of a public relations kind of thing, like people want warranties. And I mean, roads last for a really long time. The contractor is not going to warranty the road for 20 years. They're probably going to warranty it for just a couple years. And the way that these contracts work, it's like we are doing extensive testing of the materials, testing of the subgrade. It's full-time inspection, whether it's a federal project or a local project. We have, our engineering firm have inspectors on site. So it should be good. On the oddball case, when something happens, those defects show up very quickly, and the projects are typically still open, and it's not even a warranty issue. We are just addressing it as punch list items. That's something that I hear rumblings at the state, and we'll see what happens. I think a lot of times if you're coming back to the contractor a year and a half after they've been totally gone and everything's done, you have to prove that it was some type of workmanship issue. And because there's a little bit of raveling on the surface of the pavement, they just turn around, well, because you guys salt too much, or your plows are scraping the pavement. It turns into a fight, and I see many attorneys making lots of money if this ends up being a statewide thing, because You know, and it will also drive up the cost of the project, because if they're going to have to guarantee for multiple years, they need to protect themselves from doing that, and that price just gets reflected in our unit prices as these projects move forward. So I like to think that we do a good job of keeping tabs on the contractors through lots of testing and oversight during construction, and that minimizes our risk. Oftentimes, if it's a cracked slab of pavement that's in one place, it's going to be a lot cheaper for us to just go out and seal it than it is to fight with the contractor about them taking care of it. So some of what's coming up, this map goes through 2020. We don't have really all of our local projects planned out all the way through 2020. It's just 2020 is the year that we have federal funding through. So I'd like to include it because I know that I've got we actually did very well for our fiscal year 2020 on some federal roads. So most of what you see in blue are some of the major road projects. These are what we anticipate. It all, depends on how much money we get for our bond that we can actually handle the amount of work in any one year. Oh. And this is the map that you have on the back of your jurisdiction map. That has all of this information plus 2017. I just put that on there since some of those projects haven't started yet. I wanted to be aware of where we were this year. So by the numbers, from 2017 to 2020, we're looking at another 63 miles of pavement improvements, 150,000 feet of new water main yet to be installed. And this comes with a price tag of about $144 million in investment. So that's both water, sewer, and roads investment. And going to be touching another 6,490 properties. You're bound to be one of them. Be nice. And we get to the question and answers spot. I don't know how many, you do have some, that's good there. So I think Councilman Morris was gonna kind of help me go through those, and I'll take a seat, and we'll probably just use the mic for whomever needs to answer.
Okay. If we can have the lights, please. We're going to go into the question and answer session of the meeting. Thank you, Lee. We're going to start off with a few questions that we know we commonly get asked. The first one is, why did my water get shut off and I not know about it? What?
The number one reason that you would have water turned off and not have a notification is when the construction's going on, there's live water going in the area. The contractor hits a water service, hits a water main, we have to shut it off because it can wash out the whole construction site. There are emergency turnoffs, and they do try to get our crews out there to go door to door, or the engineering firm or the contractor, but sometimes it's a matter of getting the water off now to save the day's progress and compaction on the road or something like that. That's the number one reason you'd have water off without notification. Another one, I gotta give the second reason, every now and then a valve doesn't get turned back on. So we actually extended the shut-off area and didn't know it. So if you're out of water, you didn't get notified, please call Public Works.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Once a construction project ends, how long will it take for my landscaping to be installed or reinstalled?
Yeah, so that was the one I was speaking to. A lot of that, how quickly they come to do the restoration depends on what time of year it is. So it's usually like springtime and fall is when they want to get that seed down. And sometimes people will ask about sod. A lot of times the places that you will see us use sod will be in dense commercial districts on the major roads where everyone's got irrigation. Sod is, the survivability of sod has got to have a lot of water. And we have a lot better success just using seed in the areas where irrigation is spotty. So some of the major roads, depending if it's a more residential major road, it was probably not sod because not everyone has irrigation. These commercial areas are where you see sod. But again, that's going to be dependent on what time of year it is, and it usually takes a couple of years, I would say, before you really can't tell the difference between that newly restored area and the rest of your front lawn.
Okay. Will our water be tested? When and how often after a road construction project is done in our neighborhood?
The water is tested according to AWWA standards. It's what we use is 2 consecutive 24-hour periods of back sampling. The water is taken from the same sample point. Anytime the water main's taken out of commission before it goes back into commission, they take the samples into the lab. They actually incubate them overnight and then check them in the morning. You got to get 2 consecutive clear samples. That says the water main's safe. It goes back into service.
Can you say what the thing is? We don't know what AWWW is.
Oh, I'm sorry. That American Water Works Association, they set the guidelines for testing. I apologize for that.
I'm not saying just for that, but, sometimes you just speak with initials. You don't know what it is.
Got you. Yep.
Acronyms.
Yep.
Thank you.
Next question, who are the contractors and how are they selected?
So I hope I covered that enough when I was doing the presentation. So that for the locally bid projects, that is a quality-based selection of contractors. So we create short lists. We definitely want enough contractors for every type of work that we bid so that we get competitive pricing. We feel we've got a decent group of contractors here. Again, none of them are perfect, but they can all get pipe in the ground. It's usually the things that some of them struggle with more than others will be some of the community relations type things, or some of them are better with the restoration. I think most of the contractors that work in Southfield, I think Southfield was kind of the start of this performance-based specification for restoration. So a lot of other areas and MDOT projects, they just put the seed down and they're done, they're gone, whether something grows or not. So we really push to make sure that we're getting some grass growth, substantial grass growth that is on its way to fully back before we let these contractors off the hook. Yeah, so that with the, right, I work with the purchasing department on this quality-based selection for these contractors. So that is always out there on Mitten. I don't know exactly what that stands for. That's basically just like the electronic world of bidding now. So that's how contractors would know that, hey, Southfield has this open invitation out there to submit a qualification package if you'd like to be a pre-qualified contractor for water main installation, sewer installation, asphalt work, concrete work. So it's kind of broken out, and depending on what the scope of work is for each project is who we invite to bid on that project. But the contractors first submit their bids, and they've got to have a certain amount of experience. I mean, Southfield, we do big projects, and if they may be a contractor that does great concrete work, but if most of their experience is just pouring sidewalks and driveways, they're not going to qualify to be on our list when we're doing major concrete road projects. So some of it is the dollar value of their experience and the quantity of what they've installed, and we keep tabs on it. Contractors can fall off that list if we're having performance issues, and they have. We give them, it's almost like a timeout, and they have an opportunity to reapply even after something like that happens. Then we recheck the references, and we want to check that they've done other jobs, that they haven't had the same issues that we were having with them, and whatever the particular point is.
And Lee, that kind of leads right into the next question. Is the city holding the contractors accountable for their work?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the final walkthrough, that addresses the majority of issues that we might have with any construction installation. Our local projects do have that 2-year warranty. Like I said, we very rarely have ever used that. Restoration is the thing. That's the tricky part, getting the grass to grow, and it's very weather dependent. So that's the thing that we really have to hold their feet to the fire and make sure that we get the project buttoned up at the end. So when someone has new water main, new roads, you don't just want them to complain about the grass. You want them to feel good about the whole project and the investment that we made in that neighborhood.
Okay.
1 to 2 years after the work is done, the project stays open because we're dealing with punch list and typically grass.
2016, most likely not been broken down because of structural items and perfecting.
Evergreen Road out here, that is still open. The federally funded projects, those big projects take even longer to close out, so.
A couple of finance questions. Based on the pass-through dollars we send to Washington, of that, how much does Southfield receive for road usage?
Of the dollars we send to Washington,
Yes.
I don't know that number.
Okay.
I believe the number, I don't know it. We will get that number.
We
though.
have the person's information, so we'll get that number and get it.
We, the dollars don't come, the federal dollars don't come directly to the city. Those dollars go through the state on the major roads and then Oakland County. For example, the committee we discussed is the Oakland County Road Commission Federal Aid Committee. So that's those federal dollars coming back down through the state, and then the county is the state's agent. So those dollars then come back. And that pool is anywhere from the 14.5 to $16.7 million.
Mhm. Okay. Next question.
So I don't know when we saw the $20 million coming in from the federal, our federal number is driven more on how we can compete and get more of that federal aid. But there's not a block grant that comes to Southfield for roads.
Okay.
It goes to the state and then to the county.
I think that may answer the next question. If the federal government increases funding for road and infrastructure projects, can we expect to use that funding for our roads?
We'd love to see more money from the feds. It's funny, but I use the analogy. My grandparents had a cottage. I was up there a few years ago. The road was dirt forever. There's not a bunch of people, but somehow it got paved.
Mm.
And it goes through. We don't tend to think about this, but there is the politics of roads at the state level and the local level. It doesn't matter that the majority of the population lives in southeastern Michigan. Some little, rural cottage area in Gladwin County, they paved this road that was dirt for the first 40 years of my life, that you could stand on it for 20 minutes without a car going by. You begin thinking about the irony of how some of these things work. But that is a legislature making determinations, the politics of road. My district has to get something. We simplified the gas and weight measures. There used to be parts of that are based on population.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that Southfield paid its match on 696 and Southfield Freeway when it was done. The new legislation on I-75 being built, the local communities don't have to provide the state match.
Mm.
That would have been millions of dollars, and we think politics doesn't play into this. It does, and it's big numbers. Madison Heights will tell you their match on I-75 would have been the entire amount of their Act 51 money for 1 year. So it's part of the challenges to this. Lee's talked about service drives. When we're talking to our lobbyists about a service drive on the freeway, well, the service drive services that freeway, but the volume that counts are the actual cars. It doesn't matter that there's 120,000 cars going by. The service drive only gets 20,000. It never scores well enough. Some of us are saying to Lansing, you need to take over the service drive. There's a lot of politics in this, and we'll spend millions of dollars rehabilitating a service drive.
And let me stay with you, Fred, because this rolls into the next question. How does the county decide on which roads in Southfield will get repaved? Also, how much pressure does the city put on the county to fix our county roads in Southfield? For instance, 10 Mile between Evergreen and Southfield.
We put a lot, but. if
10 Mile is
there's-
rough.
If there's, sake of this conversation, it's typically 14.5 to 16.5 million. There's what is called a 4R job, which is a complete reconstruction, and the rest are 3Rs, restoration. The county usually tries to get one 4R job. The county, Oakland County, will tell you it is the second largest road network in the country. It's a big county, lots of roads. And for some reason, one of the differences between Michigan and Georgia and other states is more of the roads are the local and the county and not the state. When you're in Georgia, Ohio, there's state routes. So it's about who's responsible for maintaining those roads. If you look at the last 3 years, we've walked off with 25% of the match. There was a meeting where the West Bloomfield Township Supervisor was very, very upset that we got 25% of the money. And I will tell you, there are also people trying to change those formulas to, well, it's not fair. How's Southfield? The other community that's done very well because they have a local bond millage is Royal Oak. And if you look at who's picking up big chunks of the money, it's Southfield and Royal Oak. Our peers to the north, Lake Orion, Green Lake Township, Rochester, they're not happy with us. Then there are some other things that, unfortunately, Southfield's not in this position. You saw where our tax base went from that 4.6 billion to the 3.2, and now we're at the that 2.4, 2.6 number. Troy a couple years ago was able to take out of their general fund and put $20 million into local roads. So that's the strategy that they have worked, but their tax base is just shy of $6 billion. So it's lots of politics on roads. We will continue to work the formulas to the best we can. The fact that the city started this PACER rating before the rest of the county in '08, I think we've got more information and more depth of information than a lot of our communities.
Yes, we do have someone here, Oakland County Commissioner Janet Jackson. She also can answer, if you'd like to respond.
Yes, the question, I just want to speak to the pressure that the city may put on the county to complete or look at certain projects, one or the other. There's also the Oakland County Road Commission, ever since 1985. They've come into every municipality within the county, and they set a strategic plan based upon what projects might be the most feasible, what projects might be the most in need. And those plans that are more so not maintenance type plans, but general improvement, where they have to tear up the road, depend on federal dollars. The Oakland County funding for roads comes from, as it has been stated, not from taxes. Taxes aren't levied for our funding. It's the funding comes from the state and the federal government, and we have already gone over the issues with those funding sources. What I can say, and it's just like a drop in the bucket, but it does mean something. And as Fred Zorn mentioned, there are politics in this whole picture here. In Oakland County, we didn't have funding for city road projects. We just, as a commission, put pressure on the county itself, on our general fund, to finance local road improvement projects. Just since last year, just since 2016 and 2017, we instituted a local road improvement program. And part of that money is going to be, it's funding the program that's coming up along Northwestern Highway between Lockdale and Case, along that service drive where you can kind of cut around to get around to Sierra Chevrolet in that area. So it is political. And I'm sorry that we weren't at the table this time, but I welcome
You're here
to
now.
maybe to have
No.
another
No.
town hall that would include maybe the road commission from Oakland County and myself and my other fellow commissioner, because we talk about this issue all the time. It's very serious.
Thank you for your comment.
You're
And
welcome.
we are grateful, and the the raw numbers. What we're doing is taking a part of the county's money that they've done for the service drive that the county commissioner is referenced. We're using 3 years, 3 years. We're using this year's, the current year, next year, and then we're bundling that. And what was the total cost of the project, 1.7 or?
No, it's,
It was just in front, it 2.3 million, but again, we're leveraging dollars. I mean, the cost of these road projects per lane, per mile is staggering. We're grateful. We'd love to see the number increase, and, you know, we'll make that plug. And,
well, we are increasing it, for 2017, but just $1 more million. I mean, that sounds like $1 million is a lot, but when it comes to road funding, repair, maintenance,
Dropping the ball.
it's not, but it's something. And that money is matched. It's matched by the city. It's matched by the dollars that were approved by our residents for the municipal bond. And thank you
Okay.
so much for
All
allowing
right.
me this time.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, let's go to the next question. I think this might be for you, Larry. Have all the drains been flushed in the areas of construction? If not, when or can they still be flushed? How long will 10 Mile be closed?
I'm not 100% sure on how long 10 Mile is going to be closed.
Okay.
End of August, until the end of August. Lee
Okay.
wasn't 100% sure. One thing that we have done is we did not make the mistake of putting new roads over bad utilities. Every one of our projects so far to date, we've had the sanitary sewer inspected, rated, and repaired as needed, and the storm sewer inspected and repaired as needed. So we're actually a year or two ahead in our sewer inspection. We have 4 locations right now in Southfield where they're out ahead of our capital projects, taking care of our sewer needs.
Okay, thank you for that. Just going to try to get through as many more questions as we can. What are the major differences between asphalt and concrete that's utilized in roads, and what is the criteria for each application?
Asphalt and concrete both are good pavements to use. I think some of it comes to personal preference, some of it is cost. The cost difference between the two has varied over the years. When oil prices came way down, they got very close between asphalt and concrete pavements. On local streets, we tend to stick with what was there originally in general. We do. I'm a big proponent of asphalt, more because I like the ease of the simple rehabilitation projects that we do. During construction, it is less impactful to the residents in the neighborhoods because you don't have the cure time and everything that you have with concrete. On the major roads, you know, the heavy trucks and everything, it's like we historically have done mostly, I think, concrete on our big major road projects, but honestly, there's super pave asphalts out there. Most of the highways you drive on are asphalt, so if you use the right mix and the right thickness, you can really use either pavement in any application. Some of these projects, Civic Center, when we redid that one, Civic Center was originally a concrete road. It was milled off years ago and got an asphalt cap, and then just 3 years ago now, we milled off that asphalt that we had overlaid probably 10, 15 years ago. But then we do a test, and sometimes what you find, you know, they roll a heavy truck over it to make sure that that concrete that's there is stable and not moving. And we run into issues sometimes. Like sometimes people have this fantasy that the roads used to be built better. I just think what they're remembering is when the roads were all new, because we have some of these pavements that we pull up the old concrete or the concrete's moving and you pick it up and there's like no base. So, I mean, pavements today, it's a science there, and it's not just the actual pavement you're looking at, but a designed layer of stone underneath that helps mitigate what your subsoil conditions are. So there's a lot that goes into it, and you know, we work with soils engineers to actually come up with pavement cross-sections for every project we do.
Okay. Is there a comprehensive plan that we can access in terms of road construction projects? Is there a comprehensive plan online or?
Well, the upcoming projects map, and that's what is on the table back there, that is available on the city's website. So as that grows over the months, you know, into fall and next spring, usually a lot of times in the winter is when we're really getting a handle on, firming up where we're going for the next year, and we just update that map as there are updates. So when you go to cityofsouthfield.com, right on the main page under highlights, there's a construction projects tab. And when you go to that tab, you'll find a PDF of that road jurisdiction map with those numbers to call for pothole issues. You'll also see a PDF of our upcoming road projects. So that's the map that you were able to collect tonight, but that's the same map that's on the website right now. And when there's updates, we update it.
Okay, you talked a lot about the PACER rating in the presentation. What if the road rating is poor, but the water mains are fair? Will the road still be rehabbed or reconstructed?
Eventually. So that's when it comes down just to dollars and cents. So every year, we're always going to be reconstructing some failed roads. But we have, I can't remember my number, 86 or so miles of poor condition roads, and we can't afford to fix them all at one time. So, I mean, the road bond makes me at least feel like I have an answer, like, okay, we will get there. This is set up as a 10-year program. This is only year 3. And we're, at the same time that we're going to be tackling some total reconstructions, there's always still has to be some money spent to make sure that we're not allowing more roads to fall into that category and making the overall situation worse.
Okay, I'm just going to try to get through some road-specific questions in the next 10 minutes or so. When will Beach at the 10-mile intersection be resurfaced? It is terrible.
Not yet scheduled.
Not yet scheduled.
So, no, Beach is 10 miles
10
a
mile
county
Beach.
road. Beach is a local road, and it's really just on the south side of the intersection. It is on Beach that it's especially bad. I'm familiar with it. That's a road that is eligible for federal dollars. It's hard for us to capture federal dollars because the traffic counts aren't, as high as they are on a lot of the other major roads. That's going to be a very, very expensive project when we do it. It's definitely on our radar. We know that it's in bad shape. If we don't feel like we can afford to do that full mile that really needs it, then we may just come in and do a heavy patch repair just for the first couple hundred feet, because that's really the worst spot of it is just south of 10 miles. So we work with DPW. I tend to talk a lot about just these capital projects, which are like whole neighborhoods or whole miles of roads. But our DPW oversees the spot concrete and spot asphalt program, and they do a couple $1 million in work every year also to take care of areas just like this. And maybe they'll come in and do a little mill and overlay, and it's going to be enough to last us 5 to 7 years, so that hopefully we can get some additional funding to do the whole mile.
Thank you. Okay, DPW question, Department of Public Works. Get those acronyms out there. Will heavy bulk trash be picked up while construction is being on my street? This is a resident on Hilton.
If your trash is out and it's not being picked up, the contractor is actually in the contract responsible to get it to a point where our trash collector can get to it. So if it's not getting picked up, call the number on the first flyer you got, complain to Lee, we'll get it picked up.
Okay.
It's hers, not mine.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, why are the contractors using backfill dirt that's full of rocks and debris instead of good quality dirt, especially when the soil that was removed is good quality? This is a resident on Lexington Parkway.
I'm assuming they are talking about in the areas for restoration. So one thing I've learned doing these construction projects is that there is a very, very broad range of what is considered topsoil. And there has to be some organics in it, but there's a big difference of what is acceptable. There's not a general standard. So, and we do say topsoil. We do test the soils to make sure that it, has the organics that it's supposed to have. The contractor, it only benefits them if they put down good topsoil, because then they get the grass to grow faster. Certainly, the residents can really help, because you can tell that people that are out there and trying to water it regularly, and that grass will start growing, and it'll come in a lot faster with regular water. The contractor will water when they need to, as they try and get it established. But they may only come out a couple times a week to water it, and certainly it's going to fill in a lot faster if you're watering it every day.
Okay. 9 Mile Road between Lasher and Telegraph. You're fixing the potholes, great. Your cold patch lasts a couple of weeks, then it's gravel. Can you please sweep the bike walking path? It is full of gravel, glass, and road debris. Thanks. That's a comment and a question.
Just to touch on that, Southfield has a court program in the summer, and that's actually where we've been utilizing them. So if you do have complaints about the bike paths and walk paths being dirty, that's where we're using our court resources. Public Works, contact Public Works 4850. Yes, sir.
Most of the time when they do patching, they're just shoveling it on. Why don't they use plate compactors to press it down so it stays there? Just putting it down, when somebody drives over it, it's off.
I agree with you, but the issue is we only have 11 guys to cover all the roads, and we only have limited time. We actually do that. We actually do that in the summer in areas. We go through and we use it. We have a mini roller, and we blow out the joints. It's just more time consuming and man hours. So throwing the cold patch really is the quick and dirty to make it as safe as we can, as quick as we can. But we do that through the summer, through the warm months, where we do use asphalt. And we would like to do more of it as we grow. We start saving up, we start cutting down the number of hours and time we spend cold patching. That'll free up guys to do more real solid repairs.
Please shed some light on the status and overall project management of the water main break at Franklin at Civic Center Drive and Telegraph. Happened in October, was supposed to be completed by January. Now it's part of a big project to be completed in the fall. Does the city pay for this equipment to sit there week after week?
It's not a water main break. The water main broke because the sewer collapsed. The sewer was part of the Evergreen Farmington sewer system. It's a 4-foot pipe, 44 feet deep. It took a lot of engineering efforts to figure out a solution that was safe, constructible, and won't leave us 44 feet deep going into the future. Right now, the good news is the sewer main, the new sewer main is across Telegraph, and the rebuilding of the utilities that washed out, believe it or not, pipe and manholes washed away in the sewer pipe. It was pretty big. It's a mini Fraser. So yeah, it did take a lot of efforts engineering this plan, but it is coming together. It's going to finish up in time to allow our federally aided road project to come right up, and it'll button right up to Telegraph, and we'll have a brand new road, brand new sewer pipe going under the road, brand new storm sewer, and brand new water main over there.
Okay.
Oh, and we are splitting the cost with Oakland County. It's actually the Evergreen Farmington Sewer District, not necessarily the county, but Oakland County is managing the project.
Okay, great. Couple questions about Losser, south of 10 Mile. South of M10. Will the street be open, one lane each way during repairs? When start and when finish?
So the Road Commission for Oakland County is managing that project. The road, that piece of Lasser will be 100% closed through traffic during construction. Even all of the businesses that front on that section of Lasser have alternate driveway access. So that will be totally closed, and they'll use Northwestern Highway Service drives as their posted detour route for the majority of it. For one section of time, because we couldn't avoid it, they are using Evergreen. I've got enough going on Evergreen this year, but they have really nowhere else to take people. So there's going to be a few weeks that they are detoured over to Evergreen Road. Should be starting. They just had the bid award this week. Prices came in good. Usually it takes about a month after the date of award before they get all the board approvals and the contracts executed and construction actually starting. So it'll start in about a month, and that'll pretty much go through the rest of the construction season and wrap up in early November.
Okay, final question. This has to do with Northwestern Highway, 9 Mile to Evergreen, 10 Mile Evergreen to Greenfield, coming off of the lodge, north to Evergreen Road is a mess. When can we expect work to be done?
We have federal funding for that, for 2 miles of that northbound Northwestern service drive for 2018, so that's going to be next year. And again, that's one of those pieces that we're talking to the Department of Public Works to see if they can do maybe some early spot concrete repairs on some of the worst spots. The project next year is really going to be overlaying that pavement, and all the real bad spots have to be redone anyway, so it's not wasted money for us to do it now. But that'll be 2018.
Okay. Okay, that brings our question and answer portion to a close, and our meeting to a close. I'd like to thank all of city staff for participating in this presentation. I really appreciate it. You guys did a great job. I'd like to thank all of the residents for coming out. I hope you learned a lot, and please take an opportunity to look at the displays on the outside. I also like to thank Dave Wick, the Southfield Public Librarian, for allowing us to use the room tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming.